All right, sending harmful messages on social media can now get you into a lot of trouble. In fact, it can land you in jail. So if you're one of those trolls, you might want to pay attention. The Cybercrimes Act, which was signed by President Ramaphosa back in June, came into effect yesterday. Let's find out exactly what this means for those who decide to turn to social media. Brian Turner, good morning to you, data analyst from Worldwide Works. Those who turn to social media to have a go with someone that they don't agree with and then things turn ugly, it's now very real. They could get into some proper trouble, can't they?
Indeed, they can find themselves in trouble depending on what they do. And they can also find themselves becoming precedent for future cases. So one shouldn't be known as the landmark case for creating bad trouble online.
And here's the problem, though, Brian. I think when it comes to social media, the WhatsApps of the world, the Telegrams, I can keep naming all of them. There's new ones every day. When we talk about harmful messages, are you able to maybe give me some guidance and those joining us? Like, what do we mean by harmful messages? Was there any guidance given?
So for harmful messages, it extends to basically what is covered in the physical space. So any threats, any like extortion attempts, those kinds of harmful acts are covered by the bill. What isn't covered yet, some sections like dealing with revenge porn. Those aren't dealt with yet, and they're not in operation yet. They are part of it, but they just aren't in operation yet. So those kinds of harmful acts aren't really covered just yet, and it seems like it's going to be a rollout approach to this bill. So there are certain things that are covered and certain things that aren't.
And of the things that stand out that have been covered, Brian, what's the one that stood out for you?
I think it's threats, because there are a lot of keyboard warriors, as we like to call them, people who act very tough and almost act like a dog behind a fence, barking very loudly until you open it. So that one was quite surprising to me.
And then when we talk about the incitement of violence, viewers at home would have seen a moment ago, we had at the bottom of the screen, inciting violence. Also, no real surprise that that's being looked at so harshly because of that unrest we saw back in July. But I suppose the problem here is going to be you can put all these laws into place, but social media is very difficult to monitor at the best of times, isn't it?
It is. If we look at the sheer number of tweets that are published a day, it's only growing in this country as well. So as more South Africans become connected, and our research does show that South Africans are becoming exponentially more connected each year, especially as the price of out of bundle data costs drop. Then we'll see a lot more of these incidents occurring, and it's also something to think about that we don't have a single language in this country. We've got 11, so we not only need to monitor all of our citizens, but also monitor all of the languages, which is a huge task.
And when we look at the imprisonment and the fines, I understand fines can also come into play here. For someone who works in this sector and in this space, do you think the possible 3 years in imprisonment is perhaps a bit too harsh, or is this something that you would agree with?
It depends on the psychological damage caused to the victim. I think it's not something to scoff at with the online space, especially since we've had the pandemic and we've been stuck inside. Our cell phones and our laptops are kind of our main source of communication. If someone is abusing that, they do deserve the time, depending on how badly they abuse it.
And I understand as well that it's going to get interesting in court, won't it, when it comes to the definition of what is considered a harmful message. Like, I might tweet after the show that I didn't like Brian Turner's shirt. You might come back and say that I've got too much hairspray in my hair. But that doesn't constitute some kind of harmful comment. But I might take it personally, and I might want to take Brian Turner to court because I was offended by that. We could also see quite a lot of people trying to take advantage of this just because they've taken offence, and that's different to having a harmful message sent to you, isn't it?
That's correct. That falls into defamation, and a lot of people will see this as kind of defamation. But there are strong cases and strong precedent for that. So lawyers will immediately throw that one out. But when we're looking at this, we're looking at, let's say, for example, I tweet, "I know your address, and I'm coming to your house, and I'm bringing X, Y, and Z weapons." Those that falls within the scope, as well as I've infected your computer with a virus. That's becoming a new one. That's a new one that's really popping up, and that falls also directly into the scope. So it's a very interesting bill that I really recommend readers do read as well, because it's quite plainly written.
Brian, before I let you go this morning, we've spoken a lot about social media, obviously the Facebooks, Twitters, Instagrams, YouTube, etc., etc. What about WhatsApp in all of this? I'll tell you why I'm going to ask the question, because WhatsApp will tell us that our messages are encrypted. That is actually a private messaging service. People like to think of WhatsApp as a social media service. I disagree. It's not a social media. It's a private messaging service. What's the story here with WhatsApp and the new Cybercrimes Act? What have you been able to figure out?
So in a crime, one would have to report a crime just to start it. So the government wouldn't know about any wrongdoing on WhatsApp. And you're correct, it is a private messaging service, end-to-end encrypted. No government can intercept it, which is why many governments in the world have banned WhatsApp from operating in their countries. But when we look at a cyber crime, that is generally something that a victim will report. And the victim will take the transcript of the decrypted messages that they've sent and received from their perpetrator. So that's how they would get past that.
Brian, I appreciate your time speaking to us this morning. I think it's as clear as mud as what this is all going to do, and it depends on which platform and for who and for when and the evidence presented. But Brian Turner, thank you so much for joining us from Worldwide Works, looking at the new Cybercrimes Act and what they call malicious communications. Could land you in jail.